Right, are you ready to take a closer look at Newgen Software Technologies? We're going to do a deep dive on their Q3FY25 earnings call transcript, and we're going to break down everything from their business segments to their future plans, and of course, we have to examine those potential risks. So what was your first impression? What stood out to you in this transcript?
Yeah, the transcript definitely paints a picture of a company that is experiencing some pretty rapid growth, but context is really key here. Their, core strength lies in low-code platforms which automate a lot of processes, and that's performing really well, especially within the financial sector. But there are some kind of subtle hints about implementation timelines, regional differences, and the impact of tech like AI. So those are things we really need to pay close attention to. This is going to be an interesting journey for sure.
Yeah, for sure. So let's kind of start with a high-level look at Newgen's business segments and how they did in Q3. The first thing that I noticed was a pretty impressive 70% year-on-year growth in license sales. It exceeded expectations, and it seems like it really fueled their overall revenue growth. Mm-hmm. And we see this growth across regions, APAC, EMEA, India, and the U.S.
Yeah.
That's pretty impressive, wouldn't you say? 70%.
Yeah, 70% growth is pretty remarkable. It seems like they're really hitting their stride. But when you dig a little deeper, you start to see some really interesting regional differences. APAC is kind of leading the pack at 44% growth, followed by EMEA at 19%. But then the U.S. market is lagging a little bit at 13%. And why that discrepancy exists is something that we really need to explore.
Right, absolutely. And while we see that banking and financial services remain their kind of main strength, it seems that they're gaining some traction in government and even getting some wins in the insurance sector, particularly in some of those more well-established markets. So that kind of gives us a good roadmap for exploring each of those segments. Yeah. But before we jump into that, I did notice that the transcript mentioned some challenges with the longer implementation cycles for some of their larger projects.
Yeah.
And, this could really impact revenue and the timing of that recurring revenue from their annuity model. Those delays could pose some risks.
Yeah, definitely.
So let's break it down. Let's start with their stronghold banking and financial services. We know that this is kind of their bread and butter, but what's really driving this quarter? The transcript mentions, some strong activity in lending, payments, collections, basically everything in banking. So what do you see as the key wins and trends to pay attention to here?
Well, I think, while we see a slight slowdown in the digital lending projects in India, there's this really interesting development with new generation NBFCs, that's non-banking financial companies. And these smaller lending institutions are presenting a new avenue for growth for Newgen. And it's characterized by kind of smaller but potentially more frequent deals.
So kind of a shift from fewer, larger contracts to a higher volume of smaller deals, especially in India.
Precisely. And there might be a silver lining in the U.S. market as well. The transcript hints at kind of a resurgence in discretionary spending, which could potentially mean more banking deals for Newgen. But, they are facing an uphill battle against larger, more established players, especially in those mature markets. So, understanding the competitive landscape becomes really crucial here.
Right. It's almost like they're trying to enter, a very exclusive club, and there's some pretty stiff competition at the door.
That's a great analogy, yeah. And, Newgen's CEO, Virender Jeet, he actually kind of captured the situation perfectly in the earnings call. He said, we are hopeful that the U.S. banking space is picking up, but we are hopeful that this quarter and next quarter, we should start winning some banking deals in U.S., and we have cultivated and nurtured these deals. I think they are ripe. I think there is a slightly positive environment momentum, and we should be able to succeed in those. So his words reveal kind of a cautious optimism, He recognizes the challenges, but he also remains, hopeful about cracking that U.S. market.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, let's switch gears a bit. Let's move on to the government sector. It looks like they secured a really big contract with the Reserve Bank of India, implementing and maintaining their regulatory application management system. So it seems like they're making some serious moves in this space. What do you think is behind this success?
I think Newgen's expertise in data science and AI played a key role in securing that RBI win. It really shows their ability to adapt to that kind of evolving technological landscape, particularly within these government agencies. And, speaking of technology, this kind of ties back to those longer implementation cycles that we talked about earlier. Government projects often have, shorter timelines compared to the banking sector. And that actually results in faster revenue recognition for Newgen.
Right, which is definitely an advantage for them, considering those potential delays with those larger banking projects. But is there kind of a downside to this, a quicker turnaround in the government sector?
There is, yeah. Government budgets and procurement processes, they can be really unpredictable. It adds an element of risk, to the whole equation. Relying on government contracts always carries that kind of uncertainty.
Right, now let's move on to the insurance segment, which seems to be their newest frontier. And although it's early days, they do seem to be winning deals, even in competitive markets like the U.S. So what's their strategy here? And do you think it's sustainable?
I think they're applying the same successful formula they've used in banking to the insurance sector. And they're focusing on automating claims and underwriting processes for both life and non-life segments. And what's interesting is that while the initial insurance deals are smaller in size, that potential market is huge. It gives them, a significant opportunity to really expand their customer base.
So it's about establishing a strong foothold and building momentum in a new sector.
Exactly, yeah. And their early success with ECM, that's Enterprise Content Management, and CCM, which is Customer Communications Management, in insurance, it really suggests they have a bit of a competitive edge.
Yeah. Can you maybe give us a specific example of an insurance deal that they've secured?
Yeah. So in the U.S., they're working with a banking client to actually upgrade their digital account opening, retail loans, ECM, and collection systems. And the total contract value is $1.8 million. And this really showcases how Newgen leverages their expertise in multiple areas to really offer these comprehensive solutions. They're not just a one-trick pony.
Yeah, it's true. And it seems like they're very strategically targeting clients who need kind of a more holistic approach to their digital transformation. And I think this deal really demonstrates, their ability to deliver on that front. So we've covered the individual segments, but what about the bigger picture? What's the overall outlook for Newgen? And, are they on track to reach that ambitious revenue target?
Well, that's where things get even more interesting. I think in our next segment, we should delve into Newgen's future prospects, explore the potential roadblocks that they might face, and really analyze their overall strategy for achieving that $500 million goal.
All right, sounds good. Let's take a quick break, and we'll be back to continue our deep dive. Okay, so we've talked about Newgen's performance across these different sectors. Yeah. But what's the bigger picture? The transcript mentions this ambitious $500 million revenue goal. Is that still realistic, in your opinion? And what are some of the big obstacles they need to overcome?
Well, the $500 million goal is definitely ambitious, and the transcript gives us some hints about their strategy. One thing that really stands out is their investment in AI. They're not just looking at AI as a simple automation tool. They really see it as a key part of intelligent decision making, which, is going to be essential for long-term competitiveness in this industry.
Right, that makes sense. AI is becoming so important across, pretty much every sector. It's not surprising that Newgen's prioritizing it. But can you maybe elaborate a bit more on how their approach to AI kind of sets them apart? What are they doing that's, unique?
Well, one example is their focus on what they call contextualized AI, which goes beyond, just basic automation. It's about embedding AI into specific business processes to make them smarter and more efficient. And the transcript mentions some of their work on AI-powered fraud detection systems for financial institutions. So instead of just, flagging suspicious transactions, this system actually uses machine learning to analyze patterns and predict potential fraud in real time, which, minimizes false positives and improves accuracy.
That's really interesting. That's a huge step forward from those kind of basic rule-based systems. It sounds like they're really pushing the boundaries of what AI can do.
They are, and that's a key differentiator for them. But achieving that $500 million goal, it's going to require more than just technological innovation. The transcript also highlights the importance of talent acquisition and retention. As projects get more and more complex, having the right people is going to be absolutely critical.
Right. And that's a challenge for any company in the tech world, especially one that's experiencing such rapid growth. So what is Newgen doing to attract and retain that top talent?
Well, they're actively hiring and focusing on campus recruitment, to bring in these fresh perspectives and skills. And the transcript mentions a new graduate training program that they've developed specifically to cultivate expertise in AI and related fields. But as you said, it's not just about attracting people. It's about keeping them, creating that environment where they want to stay and grow.
Yeah, exactly. And that's where, company culture and, growth opportunities really come into play. The transcript doesn't dive too deeply into those aspects, but it's something to consider when we're assessing their long-term prospects. Now let's go back to the U.S. market for a second. Cracking that market seems pretty crucial for reaching that $500 million target. How are they approaching that challenge?
They're kind of taking a multi-pronged approach. So they're refining their brand positioning to better resonate with U.S. clients, and they're emphasizing their expertise in things like regulatory compliance, which is a major concern for U.S. financial institutions. The transcript also mentions, strategic partnerships with local consulting firms as a way to kind of expand their reach and leverage those existing networks.
So it's about adapting their message, forming those strategic alliances, and really building relationships on the ground.
Exactly, yeah. But it's a very competitive landscape, and there's no guarantee of success. We'll have to kind of see how their U.S. strategy plays out over the next few quarters.
Right. Okay, finally, let's address what's probably on everyone's mind. The need to balance growth with profitability. Investing in R&D and expanding into new markets, it's essential for future growth, but it also impacts their bottom line. Yeah. So how is Newgen kind of managing this?
Yeah, they're walking a bit of a tightrope, as many companies in their position do. The transcript emphasizes their focus on operational efficiency and cost optimization measures. So alongside those growth initiatives, they're actually implementing automation tools internally to streamline processes and reduce overhead costs.
Okay. So it sounds like they're using the same technology they sell to their clients to actually improve their own internal operations.
Exactly. Practice what you preach. But maintaining that balance between investing for growth and, maintaining profitability, that's going to be a key factor in determining their long-term success.
Absolutely. Well, we've covered a lot, business segments, global expansion, talent acquisition, balancing growth with profitability. Mm-hmm. But based on this transcript, what's your overall takeaway? What do you think Newgen's future holds?
Well, this transcript, it paints a picture of a company with a clear vision, a strong foundation, and a willingness to adapt and innovate. Their focus on AI is particularly compelling, but, it's not going to be a smooth ride.
And that's what makes this deep dive so interesting, right? It's not just about highlighting those successes, but also understanding the potential challenges.
Exactly. And those challenges are what we should look at next. Let's dive into some of the specific risks Newgen faces and how those risks could impact their ability to reach their goals.
Okay, so we've talked about Newgen's strengths, their ambitious goals, but now let's kind of flip the script a little bit and talk about some of the potential risks that they face. Every company has vulnerabilities, right? Mm-hmm. And understanding those is really key for assessing their long-term viability. So what are some of the red flags that stand out to you in this transcript?
Well, the first one that comes to mind is that challenge of managing those longer implementation cycles, particularly in the banking sector. Those delays can really have a ripple effect, impacting revenue, cash flow, and even, their client relationships.
Right. It's a delicate balancing act, isn't it?
Yeah.
They need to keep those projects moving forward while also making sure that they don't compromise on quality or scope. And that can be, pretty tricky, especially with, complex technology implementations.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of complex technology, their reliance on AI also presents a unique set of risks. I mean, the AI landscape is evolving so rapidly. What's cutting edge today could be, obsolete tomorrow.
Right. It's the double-edged sword of innovation, right?
Yeah.
It's essential for staying ahead, but it also requires constant adaptation and that willingness to, invest in those new technologies and the talent that goes with it.
Exactly. Yeah. Newgen has to stay agile and constantly monitor the AI landscape, making sure that their solutions are relevant and competitive. Mm-hmm. Falling behind in that AI race could be really bad for their long-term prospects.
For sure. And we can't forget about the competition. They're not the only player in this low code and AI space. You have these established tech giants, and then you have these ambitious startups all competing for market share. So how does that competitive landscape kind of factor into, assessing their risk?
Well, it's a significant factor for sure. The transcript mentions some pricing pressure in certain markets, and that suggests that, competition is heating up. Newgen really needs to maintain that strong value proposition. They have to differentiate themselves through innovation, customer service, or a combination of both.
They can't afford to become complacent, especially in a market where, you have new players emerging all the time. It's a constant battle to stay ahead.
Exactly, yeah. And we can't underestimate the importance of execution. They have a clear vision, ambitious goals, but translating those goals into reality, that requires, flawless execution across all levels of the organization.
Right. From project management to sales and marketing, every department needs to be, working together seamlessly to hit that $500 million target.
Absolutely. Any kind of hiccups in execution that can, delay projects, impact revenue, and even erode investor confidence. It's all about connecting the dots between, strategy and actually putting that strategy into action.
Okay, so we've identified a few key risks here.
Mm-hmm.
Managing those implementation cycles, keeping up with AI advancements, navigating that competitive landscape, ensuring, really smooth execution. But how do these risks kind of weigh against Newgen's strengths and their opportunities? Do you think they're well positioned to overcome these challenges?
Well, I think based on this transcript, it seems like they're aware of the risks and they are taking steps to mitigate them. Their focus on, operational efficiency, their investments in talent, and those strategic partnerships, that all suggests a proactive approach to risk management.
It's like they're playing chess, right? They're trying to anticipate their opponent's moves and plan their strategy accordingly. There's a sense of, calculated risk-taking, which I think is pretty important for any company aiming for that kind of growth.
Exactly, yeah. But just like in chess, even the best laid plans can, sometimes go wrong. You have external factors like economic downturns, regulatory changes, or even unforeseen technological disruptions. And those things can really throw them off course.
Right. That's the uncertainty of the business world, right? There are always things beyond their control that could impact their trajectory.
Yeah, for sure. And that's what makes following Newgen's journey so interesting. They're navigating this complex landscape, trying to balance ambition with pragmatism. They're charting a course through uncharted territory.
It's been a really fascinating deep dive. We've analyzed their business segments, their future outlook, and those potential risks they face. What's your kind of final takeaway for our listener? What should they be watching for as Newgen's story unfolds?
Well, I think the main takeaway is that Newgen is a company at a very crucial point in its journey. They have a strong vision, a proven track record, and a clear strategy for growth. But their success really depends on their ability to execute that strategy, navigate the risks effectively, and adapt to that ever-changing market.
It's a good reminder that in business and technology, the only constant is change, right? And the companies that can embrace that change, learn from their experiences, and continuously innovate, those are the ones that will ultimately succeed.
Absolutely.
Well, that wraps up our deep dive into Newgen Software Technologies. We've covered a lot of ground, but as always, there's more to explore. Keep asking those tough questions, stay curious, and keep learning.